Hello, everyone. My name's Tom Reilly. I'm chairman of the Business Services Group here at Gross McGinley. And with me today are two of our attorneys that work in the Business Services Group with me, Jake Oldaker and Sara Ashrafi. And we're going to talk today about limited liability entities, most specifically corporations and limited liability companies, and what the differences are. So, Sara and Jake, let's start with the most basic question. Why do you need to form a limited liability entity? Why can't you just decide to go into business and begin doing business as Tom Reilly and avoid the hassles of having a separate entity that you set up for purposes of conducting your business?
So the main reason is that it provides asset protection to the owners so that in the instance that they are sued, it protects their personal assets from being exposed so that a creditor cannot go after this if they are sued.
So, Jake, maybe you can expand a little bit more. How do you separate your personal assets from your business assets? How's that done by simply forming what's called a limited liability entity?
So that's one of the benefits of these entities being recognized by the state. They're set up so that the entity is formed to protect your personal assets. So there's a thing called a corporate veil, and that corporate veil protects you by leaving all the liability on the entity and not the personal assets of the owner. So you set up these limited liability entities or companies so that those assets are protected.
So if I'm following what the two of you are saying correctly, if I don't form a limited liability entity, whether it be a corporation or a limited liability company, the risk I have is that any debt that I incur, any judgments that are entered against my business will not only be the responsibility of my business, but also my personal assets?
Yes, that is correct.
So my house, my car, my bank accounts?
Correct.
And conversely, if I form a limited liability entity, am I eliminating the ability of those creditors to come after my personal assets if my business doesn't work out?
As long as you are following the formalities correctly, yes, that's true.
What is the difference, Jake, between a corporation and a limited liability company, which is also sometimes called an LLC?
So the big difference between a limited liability company and a corporation is the amount of work that the owners have to go put in and follow as far as rules and regulations go. An LLC was adopted later by Pennsylvania, but it's a great solution for business owners that don't want to follow these stringent requirements such as filings, annual meetings, appointing board of directors, shareholders. An LLC is a very simple business structure that has its own rules and regulations that you have to follow, but it was really set up to protect these small business owners or even large business owners, their personal assets with an easier structure than a corporation.
So Sara, Jake touched a little bit on the differences between an LLC and a corporation. What are some of the things that a corporation owner would need to do that an LLC owner does not need to do?
So some of the things that a corporation has to do is that they have to have bylaws in place. They have to have an annual meeting of the shareholders and of the board of directors. They have to have their minutes, and they also have to publish with a newspaper and with a legal journal notice that once they incorporate.
So let's go back to what you just said about having annual meetings and directors meetings and shareholders meetings. I'm just one person. Do I have to do all that if I'm a corporation owner?
You would have to do that, yes.
So I actually will need to meet with myself once a year and document that in order to afford the protection of a limited or of a corporation.
That is correct.
And Jake, do I need to do the same thing if I form a limited liability company?
You do not need to do the same thing with a limited liability company. You don't have a board of directors. You don't have officers. You don't need to appoint those people. You have your members, and your members are what's running the LLC. So you kind of have some different options, whether you're member managed or manager managed. And member managed, that's that you and I start a business. You and I are going to make the decisions on the day-to-day operations of the business. If it's manager managed, you are the manager, you're going to make those decisions, and you don't need my input necessarily.
So let's go back to something you said before Jake talked about what LLCs don't need to do, because it sounded like you have to spend some money. If I form a corporation, I need to advertise its existence?
That's correct. And that will cost you a little bit more than an LLC. So it'll, be a couple of hundreds of dollars.
So if I form a limited liability company, I don't need to do that.
Do not have that cost now.
Okay. Let's talk about the process for forming limited liability companies and corporation. Let's talk about what you need to do, how long it takes, and how you go about doing it if in fact you want to form your own business and afford yourselves the protections of a limited liability entity, whether it be a corporation or an LLC.
Sure. So for an LLC, you have to file a docketing statement with the Bureau of Corporations, as well as a certificate of organization. And for a corporation, you have to file an articles of incorporation, as well as a docketing statement. And as I mentioned before, you also have to publish with the newspaper and a legal journal.
So Jake, it sounds to me like the process is about the same, except forming a corporation costs more.
Correct. It costs more, and it additionally is more work once it is up and running.
Now, how long will it take me from the time I decide I want to form my limited liability company, which appears to be the way for me to go as a small business owner, between the time I want to form it and the time I'm actually up and running with the LLC in place?
Sure. So you're probably looking at a couple weeks once the paperwork's filed with the state. As Safa mentioned, it has to be filed with the Bureau of Corporations, and once they accept it, it is actually backdated to the day that you filed, and that's the date that your LLC is up and running and established.
Let's switch gears and talk about informing an LLC or corporation. You've probably seen the commercials. Certainly you can go on the internet and find the forms. Why would I need to come to an attorney to form my limited liability company or my corporation? I'm a new business starting out, don't have a lot of capital, don't want to waste capital if I can avoid it. Wouldn't it be just as easy for me to do it myself or go through one of these third-party companies that will form the entity for me rather than going to an attorney?
So you can go through a third-party company. However, they will not be able to give you legal advice. So although they can form the entity for you, they can't provide you that. And then in addition to that, the documents that they are drafting for you are not really tailored to your business. So an attorney can help with that. So I don't know if you want to add.
No, the only thing that I would really expand on is like that's what we're here for. We're here to help you, but also offer those same services that these self-help forums are doing for you, but you get an attorney that's looking at it. The people that own these self-helps, they're not attorneys. That's not their job. They're not able to give you legal advice. Whether it's an LLC or a corporation, we want to make it specific to you and help you accomplish your goals.
So if I make a mistake while I'm filling out the forms for one of these third-party companies, they're not going to tell me I'm doing it wrong?
No.
They will not be able to tell you.
Yeah, it's not their job.
And the document will get filed with the incorrect information about my limited liability company or my corporation?
That's correct. Whatever you put in, that's what's getting filed by them.
And the difference would be an attorney is going to point those things out and say, here's what you need to do.
Exactly.
So I'm guessing, does it cost a lot more to go to an attorney than to go through one of these third-party companies?
No, it doesn't. Fortunate for us, the entity formation is one of the few things where we can offer a flat fee rate. Whereas you're going to pay a similar price between self-help or coming through us and having us help you set up your business. But you get the afforded benefit of legal advice throughout the process.
So if someone looking to start a small business would call Safa or call you, Jake, you'd be able to tell them up front exactly what it's going to cost to form the LLC?
Yeah, absolutely. With the corporation, you have to keep in mind publication costs, which are going to fluctuate a little bit. But outside of that, yes, we would be able to give you a firm number.
And Safa, when you're done with the process, after you meet with the client, tailor the LLC or corporate filing to their specific needs and reflect their business structure, is everything done in a matter of weeks, or does it take longer now because an attorney's involved?
Everything is done in just a couple of weeks. Yes. So.
Okay. Well, I think we've covered a lot of things about limited liability entities, and hopefully the information we shared with you today will allow you as a small business owner to make the correct decision on how to run your business. We love nothing better than working with newly formed small business owners. Going in business for yourself is probably one of the greatest things you can do in your career. If you work for large companies, if you work for small companies, there's nothing better than the first day you walk in the door and the business belongs to you. We're here to help you do that. We're here to help you do that in an efficient, effective way and to provide you with all the information you need. And if you have any questions about forming corporations or more likely an LLC for your small business, feel free to give us a call. Safa and Jake are more than happy to talk with you, explain the process in a little bit more detail, and tell you what you need to do in terms of what you want to form and all of the things you need to do to get the information together. The process is easy, the process is painless, and most importantly, the process is something you want to do, you want to have in place before you start your new business. Thank you.